The dim glow of the nebula-lit atrium bathed the station's central lounge in shifting violet and gold, painting every surface with colors that seemed to breathe. Hundreds of eyes, compound and faceted, luminous slits, writhing tentacles, glowing orbs suspended in translucent stalks, watched from every shadowed alcove, floating dais, and transparent viewing bubble. Yet not one being had crossed the invisible perimeter that had formed around the solitary human for nearly 3 hours. He sat alone at the long obsidian table near the center of the vast chamber, elbows planted on the polished surface, staring into a glass of untouched amber liquor as though the liquid might eventually confess why the entire galaxy recoiled when he exhaled. Faint silver roads of scar tissue mapped his knuckles, older, deeper lines branched along his forearms like lightning frozen under skin. His shoulders carried the unmistakable slump of someone who had long ago stopped expecting anyone to sit across from him. The uniform he still wore, black, patched, stripped of rank insignia, was the same one he'd had on when the core veil relay went critical. 3 years later it still smelled faintly of burnt polycarbon and ionized blood. A sudden hush, sharper than hard vacuum, sliced through the murmur of 1,000 alien conversations. She entered. Queen Verithalis, sovereign of the Lirien Veil, 43rd of her line, moved like spilled starlight given royal purpose. Her skin shifted between deepest indigo and molten platinum, bioluminescent veins pulsing in slow, regal cadence beneath its surface. 4 arms, 2 upper, 2 lower, moved with such fluid economy that gravity itself appeared to remember its manners in her presence. The air around her shimmered with a faint corona of refracted light. Tiny motes of gem dust embedded along her high cheekbones caught the nebula glow and threw it back in miniature constellations. Her eyes were twin eclipsed suns, gold irises ringed with black that drank light rather than reflected it. A circlet of living silver filament rested on her brow, each thread subtly alive, coiling and uncoiling in time with her heartbeat. Every diplomat, pirate lord, corporate liaison, exiled scholar, and contract assassin in the room lowered their gaze, paled, or simply forgot how lungs worked. She paused once at the threshold, surveyed the chamber with the calm appraisal of someone who had already memorized every exit, every threat vector, every possible political geometry. Then, without the slightest hesitation, she walked straight toward the human's table. The collective inhale was audible, a hiss that rolled across the atrium like wind through dry reeds. Servos whirred as security drones twitched, several bodyguards reached for concealed weapons only to freeze under the sudden pressure of 1,000 watching stares. No one moved to intercept her. No one dared. She stopped beside the empty chair opposite him. One lower hand drew it out with perfect courtesy while the upper pair folded in serene composure. When she sat, the faint chime of her silver throat rings was the only sound left in the galaxy. He did not look up at once. His thumb traced the rim of the glass in a slow, unconscious circle. When he finally raised his eyes, they were the dull gray of spent reactor shielding. "You're making a very expensive mistake," he said. The words came out quiet, rough from 3 years of mostly silence. Verithalis tilted her head. The motion was so liquid it seemed her neck contained no bones at all. "Am I?" He gestured with his chin toward the room. "They think I'm contagious. A plague vector. A war criminal. A walking extinction event." His gaze flicked briefly across the frozen faces, some horrified, some fascinated, most simply terrified. "They're probably right." She leaned forward until the nebula light caught the gem dust on her cheekbones and turned them into tiny galaxies. "And yet," she said, her voice a low cello note that vibrated inside his sternum, "here I am." For the first time in 3 standard years something cracked behind his eyes, surprise so raw it almost looked like physical pain. His fingers tightened on the glass until the knuckles blanched white. "Why?" The word came out more plea than question, stripped of pride. The queen reached across the table. One long, elegant finger brushed the rim of his untouched drink, sending a single ripple across the amber surface. When she spoke again her tone was softer, almost private, meant for him alone amid 1,000 eavesdroppers. Because I have watched every recording of the battle at Veil. Every frame. Every auxiliary feed. The black box telemetry. The helmet cams of the 12 who died beside you. She paused, letting the weight of that settle. I have seen what you did when the command deck was burning and your crew was already dead. I have counted the individual seconds you held the primary breach so the escape pods could jettison. 187 seconds. I know the precise mass of duranium you burned through with your own body to keep the plasma wave from reaching the civilian transports docked below. His throat worked. He looked down at her hand, so close to his scarred one, and did not pull away. I don't deserve your pity, he rasped. I offer no pity. She turned her palm up, an open invitation, the bioluminescence in her veins tracing delicate filigree patterns across her skin. I offer recognition. The kind no one else here has the courage to give. Silence stretched between them, fragile as spun glass. Around the room the paralysis began to fracture. Whispers erupted in a dozen languages. A Kravaxian trade baron hissed something venomous to his aide. A pair of cephalid scholars exchanged rapid pulses of chromatophore color. Somewhere near the upper galleries a security drone received conflicting orders and simply powered down in confusion. The human's gaze drifted across their joined hands, hers luminous and perfect, his calloused and broken. You know they'll brand you next, he said quietly. Anyone who touches me gets painted with the same brush. Sympathizer. Collaborator. Traitor to civilized space. Verithalis smiled. A small, fierce thing that showed the double row of silver-edged teeth. Let them try. He exhaled something that might have been a laugh if laughter still lived in his chest. You really don't understand what I am, do you? I understand exactly what you are. She closed her upper hands around their still-joined fingers, cocooning his rough skin in shimmering warmth. You are the man who chose to burn rather than let children die. You are the name they erased from every honor roll because the truth was too inconvenient. You are the reason 17,842 civilians are still breathing, and the reason every government in this sector sleeps better pretending you never existed. His breathing hitched. She leaned closer. I have read the classified after-action reports your own admiralty buried under 50 encryption layers. I know what orders you disobeyed. I know what it cost you. And I know you would do it again tomorrow if the same choice came. A muscle jumped in his jaw. That's why they're afraid of me. Not because I killed. Because I didn't let them kill. Precisely. Her lowest hand lifted, hesitated, then gently brushed a lock of sweat-damp hair from his forehead. The touch was so careful it might have been made of light. And that is why I am here. He closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them again, they were wet. Human, embarrassingly ordinary tears glittering in the nebula glow. I haven't slept more than 2 hours at a stretch since Veil, he admitted in a voice so low only she could hear it. Every time I close my eyes I see the breach alarms. I hear the bulkheads screaming as they melted. I smell my own skin burning. He swallowed. I keep waiting for someone to come and finish what the plasma started. Verithalis said nothing for several heartbeats. Then she lifted their joined hands until his scarred knuckles rested against her cheek. The contrast was stark, his rough, pitted skin against the flawless luminescence of hers. Then sleep now, she whispered. Here. In front of the galaxy that fears you. Let them see that monsters can be tired too. He stared at her as though the words were written in a language he had forgotten how to read. She did not release his hand. Instead she shifted her chair closer until their knees brushed beneath the table. One of her lower arms slid around his shoulders, not possessive, not protective in the way a bodyguard would stand, but steady. Anchoring. The room had gone utterly still again. No one breathed. No one blinked. A single tear, human, salt and ordinary, slid down his cheek and fell onto their linked fingers. Verithalis caught it with the tip of one silver claw, brought it to her lips, tasted grief and stardust and something older than either. Her eyes never left his. "I choose," she said, voice carrying just far enough that the nearest tables could hear, "to sit with you." For one suspended heartbeat the galaxy held its judgment. Then the human exhaled a sound that might have been a sob or a laugh or both. Slowly, agonizingly. He bowed his head until his forehead rested against their joined hands. His shoulders shook once, twice, then stilled. She did not move. Did not speak. Simply held him there in the center of the most public place in the sector while 1,000 alien gazes burned holes through them both. Minutes passed. Or perhaps hours. Time had become elastic. Eventually he lifted his head just enough to meet her eyes again. His voice was hoarse, cracked open. "If they come for me, they will have to come through me first." He searched her face for any sign of bluff or political theater. Found none. A ghost of a smile touched his mouth, the first in years. "You're insane." "Perhaps." She brushed her thumb across the oldest scar on his wrist, the one that still ached when pressure changed. "Or perhaps I am simply tired of watching cowards rewrite history while the only honest man in the room sits alone." He let out a breath that sounded almost like relief. Then, very slowly, he turned his hand in hers until their palms met fully. Callus against silk. Scar against starlight. Neither of them spoke again for a long while. Around them the atrium slowly remembered how to function. Conversations restarted in hushed fragments. Glasses clinked. Someone laughed nervously and cut it off mid-breath. But no one approached the obsidian table. No one dared break the circle of light and silence that had formed around the human and the queen who had chosen him. In the center of that stillness, two hands remained locked together, one scarred and trembling, one luminous and certain. And for the first time in 3 years, the man who had once burned to save 17,000 souls allowed himself to be held. Not as a savior. Not as a monster. Simply as someone who was tired, and who had finally found someone willing to sit with him in the ashes.
This is a fictional science fiction story created for entertainment purpose only. If you enjoyed these sci-fi stories, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more stories like this. Every view, every like and every comment push this journey forward and keep this universe expanding. Your support helps your support helps the channel grow. Bundle of thanks for watching and for being a part of this channel. See you in the next videos.